I mean, first of all, let's go back to the base. It's very important to understand the human nature in terms of neuroscience. I think neuroscience and neuroleadership gives us a lot of useful information here. So neuroleadership and neuroscience tells us how does our brain impact our behavior. And this is universal. So this goes, beyond different cultures. For example, what are some universal motivators for human beings? And what are some universal fears for human beings? And what can that basically, how can that have impact on our behavior? For example, a universal, let's say, driver is fear. Yeah? Now, to look at the concept of fear and say, okay, in a negotiation, if I threaten my counterpart, that means I am pushing the fear button, which could lead to this and that. Or, for example, one of the things that neuroscience tells us is that when the hormone oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, is released, then all of a sudden people tend to like to work with each other. So this helps them to bond better. This helps them to have more understanding for each other, and this helps them to want to cooperate a lot more. And there are studies which show that in environments where there are certain activities done for this oxytocin to be released, performance improves, negotiation improves, because our thinking brain, this actually opens up our thinking brain and our willingness to work with each other.
So what would you tell anybody who is coming to you saying, so what can I do that this fear button doesn't get into action?
Yes. One of the best things we could do is to work on our basically interpersonal skills, and there literature and practice offers us very interesting things, one of them being the Harvard method. The Harvard negotiation method was developed at Harvard University about 30 years ago, originally only for lawyers, and it was so successful that it pretty quickly found its way to the basically corporate world for business people. And nowadays, or for many years actually, hostage-taking negotiations and diplomatic negotiations have been based on the Harvard model. The Harvard model focuses on interests and not positions, because when we focus on positions, the fronts get tough and hard, and this very quickly can push the fear buttons, the fight, flight, freeze buttons in human brain. Whereas if we focus on interests, this can release oxytocin,
Okay.
which actually helps us match synergies and helps us want to collaborate and cooperate towards a win-win goal and win-win result.
Could we very quickly go through these Harvard negotiation principles here?
Absolutely. So here we have illustrated the Harvard negotiation, or the interest-based, or the principle. These are the three names referred to this method that you can see in literature. And we would like to walk you through it, as opposed to the positional method that a lot of managers or a lot of cross-cultural negotiators think would be the best method to use. So let's have a look at it. Of course, for every negotiation, the first thing that you need is what? The first thing that you need a counterpart. And you have the counterparts in both situations, interest-based and positional. So, and also what you have in both cases is you have an issue on the table. Either you want to do some merger and acquisition, you want to acquire a company, you want to sell something, you want to buy something, you want to start a business somewhere. There's always an issue on the table. So let's say one of the parties throws some facts, some figures on the table. In negotiation, we call this the original hook. So when we are doing interest-based negotiation, and let's say we are this little fish over here, our fish does not react to the original hook, to the facts and figures. That means we completely ignore the facts and figures which are thrown on the table. So therefore, the dynamics of the interest-based is like a funnel. It starts with very generic, let's say, topics and questions. We want to gather information, and once we have all the necessary information, we go to facts and figures. So we don't have a tough position, in interacting with our counterparts. Huh? So in positional, however, um, party A actually, again, throws some facts and figures on the table, the original hook, and what our fish does, our fish reacts to this original hook. That means we react to the facts, figures, conditions, numbers that they have named. And that has a big impact on the rest of the negotiation because it is then linear. So basically it's not a funnel, it's linear. Everything else is about the original fixed number. Therefore, the whole dynamics of a positional negotiation is like a ping pong. There we go. So everything is about the original number. So this is the biggest difference. Of course, it's oversimplified here, but this is the biggest difference between these two approaches. Now, if we are doing interest-based, let's say we are party B, we want to do interest-based, our eyes and our ears need to grow because we want to see, we want to hear, we want to do active listening, we want to understand about the motives, the drivers, and the interests which are not obvious. That means we want to find out what's going on in the background. What are the interests of the person? Who are the real stakeholders in this negotiation? How does culture, the system, this organization, this firm really tick? There are many things which are not obvious but are very crucial in the negotiation. Whereas in the positional negotiation, our eyes and ears remain their normal size. That means we don't want to explore what's going on beyond and behind. So we focus on the facts, solid facts we have on the table. So basically, again, looking at it in terms of, okay, we have a pie to share with our counterpart. Let's see how they're different here. In a positional negotiation approach, we share the pie. So, of course, the more I have, the less you have. There is no other way. So basically, in a positional negotiation, we always have a win-lose situation because there is only so much to share. Now, in an interest space, we don't want to share the pie that we have on the table. We want to come up with strategies to first enlarge the pie. So basically, once the pie is enlarged, we can both be winners. So we cannot do that as long as we actually limit ourselves to the position we have in a negotiation. We can only achieve this goal if we focus on interests and look for synergies. And therefore, here we can enlarge the pie, we can look for synergies, match those synergies, match the interests. So if we want to do cross-cultural negotiation, one of the skills that we need to understand and learn about is, okay, what are the differences between interest-based positional? In what cultures should I rather prepare as an interest-based negotiator? In what cultures or what situations is positional better? Because maybe the negotiators in that culture do not have the understanding of exploring together. Yeah? So this is one of the things that I strongly recommend that managers, negotiators, executives look into when they want to prepare for cross-cultural negotiations.